Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Pies, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and today is a special episode because we are listing our official sleeper picks for the 2025 fantasy football season. We're going position by position, so we got one quarterback each, one running back, one receiver, tight end. You get the gist. But super excited because these are kind of our stamp of approval players that we think are going under the radar in drafts right now that you need to be picking up because they're massive values. And the other big thing is, like, obviously we got sleepers here, but I can't wait because down the line the rest of the week we got bust, we got breakouts, we got our league winners, our my guys, or what we're touting them this offseason in the spirit of Marvel is our Fantastic Four players for 2025. So super excited. Those episodes will be out within the next week to help you guys with your fantasy drafts. But before we dive into the sleepers, I want to see how my brother Genoa is doing.
Yo, Dween Nation. Justin, it is almost that time of year. I think we're about 12 days out, maybe a little more from the kickoff there. Man, I remember this time last year we were doing this. I was in a different area. I was in Austin and everything. Now I'm in a different area. We're doing this again. I'm so excited. Justin, I'm so excited. Not to mention, this is one of the final episodes we're doing before I see you this weekend, Dween Nation. Right. Justin and I are going to be drafting in 3 major leagues this weekend. 2 we're pretty much all 3 are going to be in person, but 2 is going to be all in person when everybody's there. We're so excited there. Hopefully in the future we can, live broadcast it for you guys. But other than that, man, Justin, I'm excited. The sleepers, the bus, we're all going to be, posting all those episodes. But I mean, really, I'm just excited for the season. I can't really put it into words, Justin. But anyways, I'm excited for this year, Justin. It's going to be a fun fantasy season. And what better way to kick it off here with going in the sleepers?
Yeah, and let's dive into these sleepers because honestly, they're guys that I'm picking in like just about every draft I kind of get the chance to because they're so valuable and they're going later than what I believe that they're going to return that values. And I'll start with my quarterback sleeper for the season, Justin Fields. I love him for fantasy football in 2025. His rushing upside is compared to only 1 or 2 guys in the league like Jaden Daniels and Lamar Jackson, and maybe you throw in Josh Allen in there. But Fields last year as the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, he started 6 games, week 1 through 6. And in those games, he was the quarterback 6 in fantasy football. So he shows that upside already where he's going currently at the quarterback 13 in ADP. So it's an absolute value you're getting him. And he has his former college teammate in Garrett Wilson. I think that he's going to just hyper target him, and Garrett Wilson's going to have a big year because who else do they have in that room? You can't really name him. I mean, Josh Reynolds obviously is a former Aggie, a guy who's just a known wide receiver 3 or 4 on a team. Alan Lazard is still there. Another guy we're going to talk about later, but I'll leave him to you. And then you got the running backs, who I think Breece Hall is obviously a really solid running back, but what do we expect from him? I think that Fields is just going to take off. I mean, we've seen it in the brief preseason games that we've had him. He's going to take off, run with the football, be explosive there. And another thing is the offensive line is actually kind of good, kind of underrated, I'd say, heading into this season. I just think all of it together, along with the addition of Tanner Engstrand, the new offensive coordinator, who was the understudy to Ben Johnson last year, I think Justin Fields is to the moon.
Yeah, Justin, I love Justin Fields this year, Justin. I think that, first of all, no one's really talking about the pairing with Aaron Glenn, hired from the Detroit Lions, defensive guy, very tough. I think, his charisma and his, coaching mechanics can blend really well with a guy like Justin Fields, a coach that can really just take Justin Fields under his wing and kind of guide him through. Another thing, Justin, that no one's really talking about is, for me, I'm not really taking this AFC East division all that seriously. Yes, they do have the reigning MVP Josh Allen there, but you take Josh Allen out of that. Are you really trusting Tua Tagovailoa in this Miami Dolphins offense? Yes, Drake May and this New England Patriots team could be good with Vrabel as head coach, but what if they're not? What if they take some time to develop? And the Bills, right? Like Josh Allen, you take Josh Allen away, really think about it, Justin. What do the Bills really have? That's why, in my opinion, I think that Josh Allen's MVP was very much deserved. So in my eyes, I think that Justin Fields has a wide open division where, yes, it might not be pretty all the way through the season, but he's going to have a ton of flashes, Justin. And I think that, it's not a division where it's like the AFC North. Oh, there's Baltimore and there's Cincinnati and then there's Pittsburgh. Like this division is all wide open. It's not the NFC North with the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears. And the schedule isn't bad, Justin. I mean, week 1, he's got old man Rodgers returning to town. He's home. Justin Fields is home against the Steelers. And then they have a divisional matchup week 2 against the Bills. at home. They go to Tampa week 3, nice sunny weather. Week 3 in Florida. They go to Miami, another divisional opponent. Then week 5, they get Dallas, and they're at home for that one. Maybe it gets tough week 6, but they do have Carolina, Cincinnati, Cleveland. I mean, it just goes on. Justin Fields is amazing. Justin, and one a year that I'm gonna really stick to Justin Fields was always going to end it. It was always going to be in my heart. Is that, what is it, 2022 season, Justin? I think you had him that year. He had 1,000 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns in 2022. Not to mention he did have only 17 passing touchdowns, but he did all this with Matt Eberflus as a head coach. One of the worst head coaches I've probably ever seen in my life. And so, Justin, I think that now with Aaron Glenn, a guy that could, adapt for what Ben Johnson was able to do, bring some Dan Campbell into New York. I love what Justin Fields is able to do. You mentioned his teammates that I'll get into later in this episode. I do love Garrett Wilson this year. I think that they can maybe develop a Corley or someone along the lines. But other than that, I love Justin Fields' fantasy because of his legs, and I do think that he will be just as good statistically in the rushing category with quarterbacks as Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I think that rushing upside, as you mentioned, with that 2022 season, 1,000 rushing yards is a game-changing quarterback. That's upside crazy. And you mentioned the division. I love it. The Bills defense got worse this offseason. The Dolphins defense is going to be the worst in the league, I think, with the Bengals. And then, the Patriots are there, and I think they're solid. But you're right. It's wide open for Justin Fields. I love it here. I'll shoot it to you now with your quarterback sleeper of the season, Michael Penix.
Justin, I love what I saw at the last 3 games of the season for Michael Penix. And you know what, Justin? This is just a quarterback that has just had to overcome injuries. But once he's healthy, once that all gets the way, he's actually a really great quarterback. It's like that nerdy girl, Justin, in class that she's kind of weird looking, but once she takes the glasses off and you get the hair out the way, she's actually a solid 8. She's really pretty. And so that's why I feel like Michael Penix, you take the injuries out, he's actually really solid. He's got Raheem Morris at head coach, really solid. He's got Bijan Robinson, a top 5 fantasy pick. Not to mention, Bijan Robinson is a top 3 to top 5, for sure top 3 with Gibbs and Saquon as far as receiving running back. So that's going to add up for Michael Penix Jr. He has a pretty accurate arm. I will never forget what he did to my UT Longhorns in the semifinals just a couple of years ago. Shredded my team for like 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was so precise, so accurate. He did get dinged up in that national title game. Maybe he could have performed better. But I still think that he's got a great cast. You're high on Drake London this year. There's a meme going around the fantasy community that maybe this is a Kyle Pitts, somewhat of a breakout year. So maybe that can benefit. They do have Mooney, who is a little bit hurt. I think he comes back and helps his, stock tremendously for Penix. Ray McLeod is there. Hodge, and I think there's some guys that can be developed. David Stills there for Atlanta. And I just think that he's just so precise, so accurate. It's going to help him in the future. But like I mentioned, Drake London is going to be absolutely so key for Michael Penix. They were able to develop a report there, and I think Drake London had 171 or something, like week 17, 180, which is ridiculous. 12, nearly 20 targets. I think that Michael Penix, he has a full year to kind of, get into this offensive system, learn behind Kirk Cousins, who's still there. And not to mention, Justin, they draft this guy really high. He's literally one of possibly the most accurate left-handed quarterbacks we'll see this year. He's really precise, and I think that he's going to find Ray McLeod. And like I said, when Mooney comes back, that is going to work tremendously because Mooney was doing good with Kirk Cousins there. So when Mooney gets back healthy, it's going to work absolutely wonders with Michael Penix Jr. Just last thing, Justin, Mooney was 8 yards short of 1,000 yards. So could you imagine if he's healthy with Michael Penix in this offense? I love Michael Penix this year. Now, the rushing upside might not be there, but you never know. You just never know. Maybe Penix can develop something. We haven't really seen much out of him in the rushing game when he was in college, but that was because he was coming out of ACL injuries. I'm excited to see if he does develop rushing off his own legs this year. That's something I'm definitely going to be looking for. But other than that, I think this offense is going to be phenomenal. Dump off passes to Bijan, big touchdowns to Drake London. When Mooney's healthy, get Ray McLeod, maybe Kyle Pitts breakout year. And that's why I have Penix here on this list.
I completely agree with you. I think Michael Penix is set up for a really good year. And I think kind of the star behind the scene that is going to help him is Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator. I think he's a really good mind, obviously from the McVay tree. You know how successful those guys are. And so, Penix, who is a great pocket passer, is set up to with some solid targets. Drake London, to me, is a top 10 wide receiver in this league. You got Kyle Pitts, who I think is it's got to happen this year. I know. I mean, everybody and their mom has been burnt by Kyle Pitts in fantasy
Yeah.
football, but I mean, contract season last time with a new, his new starting quarterback. This is it. So if you want to give him the try, this is where it's going to be for Kyle Pitts. I do expect Mooney to miss the first few weeks of the season, which does suck. But Mooney coming back, I mean, we saw it last year. He was actually really good as the number 2 guy there. And then, of course, Bijan Robinson is set up to be a really good safety valve for him. So I think that, I think Penix is set up for a great year. I don't think we will get much from the rushing side of things, but I think he's in line for, over 4,000 yards passing. And then if he's able to tiptoe into that 35-plus passing touchdowns, he's an absolute steal where he's going, which I think he's going at quarterback 24. So he is a massive value in fantasy football right now. So I like your pick there. I'll move to running back, where I have Jordan Mason of the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, last year he stepped in to the shoes of Christian McCaffrey with the injury, the tendonitis, and obviously he played really well in that stead. I mean, he was balling for all of, until I believe he also got hurt. But in those games, in those early games without McCaffrey, I mean, he was a top 10 running back, and now he gets traded to the Minnesota Vikings. So the team went out and sought out another running back because last year, obviously, they had Aaron Jones, who was actually fully healthy, which never happens. And I don't expect it to happen this year. I mean, it was kind of a one-off year for Aaron Jones. And last year they even still tried to incorporate other guys, whether it was Cam Akers, who they traded for, or Ty Chandler. They tried to bring in other backs to help spell Aaron Jones, but I think they just brought in a back who is better than Aaron Jones at this stage in his career. A guy who's already going to be the goal line back for the Vikings. And I think he's just set up in a really good offense to be a guy that, sooner rather than later will become the 1A to Aaron Jones's 1B.
Yeah, Justin, I'm looking at his stats from last year, right? So the first 6 games, he was the clear-cut starter, and this is where his stats, okay? Week 1, he had 147 rushing yard. Week 2 at Minnesota, he had 100. Week 3 against the Rams, he had 77. And then week 4, he had 123, and so on, right? He did get hurt week 6 against Seattle. That's when Isaac Guerrero had a pretty good game. But think about this. For the first 5 games of this year, he had over 70 yards at least rushing, not to mention the touchdown. He had 147, 100, and 123 in those 3 out of the first 5 matches before he got hurt. He was able to come back here and there, but I think that injury lingered on after week 8 and through the bye week. Then McCaffrey came back in week 10, took over for 3 games, and he was one and done. Mason came back for a game, and then they kind of just doing Guerrero. Obviously, the 49ers were somewhat of a dumpster fire. They did have a Super Bowl hangover. But, Justin, you make a great point. Last year, Aaron Jones was healthy for the whole year. That is not going to happen again this year. I mean, history tells us that Aaron Jones, unfortunately, is going to get dinged up. He is going to lose carries. And I think that Jordan Mason, he's the younger cat. He's got more experience. And what other better offense besides McVay, besides a Shanahan? Kevin O'Connell, I mean, this guy as well has a pretty good running system there. He hasn't really had an alpha running back. I know he had Dalvin Cook for this couple of years, but I think that Jordan Mason eventually is going to take over, and he's a power guy. He's more of a power guy than Jones is, so I do like the goal line carries, which is going to add up. Now, there may be games, Justin, where he doesn't really get 100 yards, right? Jordan Mason might end up with something like 45 yards, but 2 rushing touchdowns. That's still great for a fantasy stat line. He might not end up over 60, 70 yards a lot of games. Like, if he gets a full work share, like 20 carries, he could get 100 yards and a touchdown. But let's say he just gets 10 to 15 carries. I do think that he can end up with 50 at most, but still a couple touchdowns, which is a great day for fantasy.
Yeah, I think, you help on a lot of points there. I mean, with Mason, those first 6 games, as we were talking about, he was the RB5 through those games. So we know that he has the pedigree and the capabilities to be a top guy, and he's currently going at RB34 in fantasy. So he's a guy you're getting in the 8th or 9th round of your drafts. So worth the pickup there. I'll jump to you with your sleeper pickup, Trey Benson.
Justin, I love Trey Benson this year. Now, it kind of bounces off on what's up with James Conner. He is up there in age. He did miss games. Even 2 years ago when I had him, I remember he missed like 6 or 7 games. And so I feel like James Conner is a really good back, but I feel like Trey Benson is just creeping along the way. He's getting closer. He's nitpicking. He's getting closer. And I think that Jonathan Gannon and this offensive staff is looking to get him more involved. I really like what I saw out of him. I would say he wasn't involved, like, not going to sugarcoat it. He wasn't really involved at all last year. But I did see him in snap percentages go up the last part of the season. And I feel like this year will be different, Justin. He will get involved more. He did only have one rushing touchdown, doesn't have 100 career rushing yards. But I think that with the health of James Conner, not even if James Conner is healthy, I think that this Cardinals offense is gearing to become more of a heavy rushing attack. So we're going to see instances where we have a lot of James Conner, but then they have a lot of Trey Benson in there. And the reason that is because I feel like this offense doesn't want to really rely on Kyler Murray in his passing game. Yes, you drafted Marvin Harrison a year ago, but that's really all you have. You want to give Trey McBride the ball as well, but you want to be a balanced offense, in my opinion, if you're Arizona. And I think that eventually, if James Conner misses, Trey Benson is the guy. He's going to literally get the touches. But even if James Conner is there, I think it's going to be somewhat of a split. And I do think we get a case where Trey Benson starts to take goal line carries from James Conner. And I think that it's going to happen at some point in the year, maybe week 4 or 5. So definitely Trey Benson is a guy that you can handcuff. I would say around 12 to 13, maybe 14 there. Let's see if you're in a 12-man league and maybe he gets picked earlier. But I feel like Trey Benson, he is just waiting to have a breakout year, and that's why I have him.
I think he's a really solid pickup. I do think with Connor starting, they know his injury history and know that if they keep giving him those big workloads like that he's been trying to handle for years, that it's not going to allow him to last throughout an entire season. So I think that Benson is starting to be a guy that I'm believing that could have some sort of standalone value with Connor there. But you're right. In the case that he's not, I like Benson a lot.
I want to add one last thing. I'm seeing reports here that he did sat with the starters yesterday, and he was a DNP for preseason week 2 for obvious reasons. And Justin, I was at the Texans game. I saw Nick Chubb, our RB2 play. Obviously, Joe Mixon is out. So an RB2 played with the Texans. He might not be the starter. He might, it's Nick Chubb, obviously. Trey Benson did not play because they sat the starter. So I think that's a positive note for preseason. I'm seeing reports that he sat again this week with the starters. He's probably going to sit again. And an analysis from Sports Illustrated saying that he could thrive in 2025. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited.
Yeah, and one last thing. James Conner stated verbatim that he sees Trey Benson as his 1B. So he sees an RB1 kind of season with Trey Benson. So there's a lot of upside there, especially him going at RB51. So he is going lower in drafts and definitely worth the pickup there later in your drafts. We'll move to me. I have Matthew Golden as my wide receiver sleeper for 2025. To be honest with you, my favorite is Emeka Egbuka, but my buddy here had the also smart idea to bring in Egbuka, but we'll talk about him in a second. But Golden is right there with it because I like both guys so much. I know they're both rookies, but they find themselves with really good opportunities. For Golden, he's already the wide receiver 1 on this team. Jaden Reed is hurt. Dontavian Wicks can't catch. Savion Williams is hurt. Romeo Doubs is there. Tucker Kraft is there. Christian Watson's obviously going to miss a lot of the season. But man, this team is kind of needing pass catchers. And Matthew Golden finds himself right in the mix, being a first-round pick, a guy who, the Packers haven't picked a wide receiver in the first round in 23 seasons. So that the way they did this shows that they really believe in Golden. They believe that he's going to be a guy right off the bat that can help them. And, I mean, this guy is actually, tremendously fast, a 4.29 40. He was the fastest offensive player at the Combine. And I just think that I could just see him being the guy. In Jordan Love, obviously last year was a down year for him, but you find him this year, he's really going to need, in order to take that next step, he needs a star wide receiver, and I think Golden's one of those guys in the making.
Absolutely, Justin. I mean, you make a great point with all the injuries. Christian Watson is hands down going to miss 8 weeks, I think, in my opinion. I think that Dontavian Wicks, I'm a fan of him, but I just don't know if he's gonna be able to turn it on anytime soon. Jaden Reed, I'm a fan of, but he does get inconsistent. He had a great start to last year, and then kind of just fell off literally after the bye week. He didn't get over 76 yards up until week 16, I'm seeing here. So he was really not looked at. I know he missed a couple games as well. And I think that that's really all you is the wide receivers. I mean, I love Romeo Doubs. I think he is going to be a factor this year for Green Bay, but not a dominant factor. He'll get touchdown here and there. So I do agree with you. I think that Matt Golden is prime for that number one spot, even if Christian Watson comes back, right, and he's healthy, even if Dobbs impresses, even if Jaden Reed is fully healthy, I think that it's kind of going to be a little too late in the season. They're going to have to throw Golden out there early. Week 1, they open against Detroit. So Jordan Love is going to need to be precise because I know Dan Campbell and this defense at least is going to be fired up to play Jordan Love. They literally stopped them last year in Green Bay. Even Jared Goff had a better game than Jordan Love in Lambeau Field. And so I think that Jordan Love, it's a prove-it year for him. I mean, this is, year 5, year 6 for him? And, he does struggle getting over 250 at times. He has the ability to have 300 yards. He has the Mahomes kind of breakout from 2018. He has the target to do so. And I think that Matt Golden is the reason why he could have a great year, why Jordan Love, it's a make it break it year for Jordan Love, in my opinion, as far as fantasy. And Matt Golden is going to be the guy. He's going to get a ton of targets.
Yeah, and one little thing just to help if you're trying to pick through some of those guys in his range, he's going behind guys like Chris Godwin, who's going to miss a significant amount of time in the season. I think he's more valuable than Cooper Kupp because Kupp's clearly lost a step. He's going to be the number 2 guy where Golden's moving into year 1 as the number 1 wide receiver. Then you got Jawan Jennings, who's also going through injury. I do like his opportunity if he isn't hurt, but I think that Golden's a guy I'd be picking over him. And then like guys like Khalil Shakir still going around him, and his teammate Jaden Reed. I just think it's Golden. It's all Golden season this year, and I like him a lot. I'll jump to you though. Your wide receiver sleeper, Emeka Egbuka.
Justin, I love Emeka Egbuka. Now, unfortunately, there is some injuries going on in the Tampa Bay wide receiving area. Obviously, Chris Godwin tore his ACL the last part of last year, and now the Buccaneers are expected to place McMillan on injury reserve when they finalize the 53-man roster, and it will force him out at least the first 4 weeks of the season. At least the first 4 weeks of the season, Justin. Every week in fantasy is crucial leading to week 13 and 14 in playoffs, Justin. So now think about it this way, Justin. Baker Mayfield had a career year, 41 touchdowns, and that was with Mike Evans missing games. Chris Godwin tears ACL. Could you imagine with one of the most electrifying rookie receivers from one of the best universities to produce wide receivers outside of LSU and Bama, Ohio State? And I do love Emeka Egbuka there. And I think that Baker is going to look for him day in and day out. And here's why. I love me some Mike Evans, but he is getting up there in age, Justin. And I feel like now defenses are going to kind of look to stop him. And Emeka Egbuka is already the wide receiver 2 in Tampa Bay. No ifs, ands, or buts, even including the tight end position. He's going to get a ton of targets to start the year off. Who knows if Chris Godwin's going to play? Obviously, McMillan is out. They don't have anybody else there outside of Mike Evans and Kate Otton. So, I mean, think about it this way. Week 1, he's going to have at the Falcons. Great matchup. I love that matchup in a stadium. No have to worry about weather. Week 2, they play my Texans. Now, Stingley could be matched up with Mike Evans for the majority of that matchup. So I do like Emeka Egbuka to get a ton of the targets. Week 3, they do play the Jets and Sauce Gardner. Once again, I think Gardner is going to be a lot on Mike Evans. He could be on Emeka at this point. They do get the Eagles, which is a tough secondary at some point, but then he gets Seattle, San Francisco. They go to Detroit. They play the Saints before their bye week. And along the way, they play the Saints again. They play the Panthers again. You mentioned Buffalo is a bad defense. They get them week 11. So, you know what, Justin? I'm loving the schedule so far. They do play Arizona, I'm seeing, in week 13. That's going to be a shootout. I love this. Baker Mayfield, I want to believe, obviously, I'm not the biggest Baker Mayfield fan, but what he did last year, I got to believe that he's going to repeat this year. 41 touchdowns, Justin, and he's missing Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Could you imagine with a young rookie with fresh legs out of Ohio State? I love it.
I think, and the schedule you were running through, you're right. A lot of those matchups, they're not like honestly the best matchups, but all of those top corners are going to gravitate towards Mike Evans, and that's only going to help Egbuka in the eyes of Baker. And I think the funniest thing that's happened this offseason is Baker was getting interviewed on some podcast, and they were just like, how are you feeling about this offseason and like, you know, or like going into the season? He was like, Emeka Egbuka is a stud. Like, you're like, wait, but we didn't even ask you about a specific person. And he literally just was like, hey, that guy's a stud. And I think that you got to believe it. You're right. He's got the pedigree of the school he went to. He was there an extra year to even learn more from that system. I know normally they're 3 years in and out. He stayed one more year. And I think it's only going to help him being a first-round pick with Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. I think you're right. I think I love Emeka Egbuka this season. We'll move to the tight ends where I have Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is more of obviously a deeper sleeper that rhymes, obviously, for the tight end position. He's going at tight end 21. right now in ADP. And when you look at him, obviously he is now replacing the shoes of Evan Ingram and what Evan Ingram was able to do in this offense. In 2023, Evan Ingram was the tight end number 2 on the season. I think that I'm not giving Bryn Strange those expectations, but I think that he is going to step into actually a solid workload. I know they got Brian Thomas, they got Travis Hunter. He's going to be the third option this season. I just think Liam Cohen, obviously last year, was able to revitalize Cade Otton into a way that we hadn't seen it before. So Otton played some really good games, and I think Trevor Lawrence is in for a year where he's going to take a step forward. And with Bryn Strange, even last year, in some of the games that Evan Ingram missed, he had 3 top 10 performances in 8 games started. So 8 of those missed games, he was able to have a top 10 performance 3 of those times. I think that it's only going to step forward now. He's being like the full tight end 1 for this team. So I think Strange is in line to be a great play. And one little thing too, if you're wanting a tight end to start hot or a guy that you think might be a early waiver wire pickup, don't look further than Bryn Strange, because this guy starts his season against the Carolina Panthers, who were the first or second worst against tight ends last year. And then he goes and plays the Bengals, who are literally the first or second worst. Let me clarify this for you guys. Okay, Carolina's second worst. Cincinnati is the worst. So he gets to play the worst 2 defenses against tight ends last year in the first 2 weeks. I think it's set up for him to be a stud.
Yeah, Justin, I love Brenton Strange this year. And here's the thing. Evan Ingram, who is now a Denver Bronco, only played 9 games last year and was still able to get 64 targets. Now, you add that with what Brenton Strange had. He had 53 targets and he played all 17 games. Now, I want to mention that Trevor Lawrence only played 10 games last year with Mac Jones, who has kind of in some ways fallen the face of the earth. He's now a 49er. We'll see what if he gets any play time this year in San Francisco. So let me put it in all this perspective. There's 64 targets with 9 games that Evan Ingram that are going to be added to Brent Strange with his 53 targets. And he's going to get a full season with Trevor Lawrence. And he's going to get a new offensive coaching staff, which Liam Cohen, you can mention, he did really good things with Cade on last year. And Liam Cohen, he's just Liam Cohen. He's becoming one of the more interesting, bright, young offensive minds. And I think he definitely has a lot of Brenton Strange in that playbook. One thing I do want to mention, Brian Thomas Jr., a stud. I don't know what we're going to see much offensively out of Travis Hunter. I think throughout the year there's going to be a lot of snap counts where, I love Travis Hunter, and I know he believes that he can play wide receiver and corner, but this is the NFL. You're playing against the top dogs. And so if you're playing offense and defense, you're for example, you're on defense covering a Jamar, a Jefferson, a A.J. Brown, a Nico Collins. Are you really going to have enough gas to get on offense and reciprocate that, like be a great offensive hobby? I think you could, but not consistently. This is the NFL. This is a different league. And so what's my point in all this? I think that Brenton Strange is going to be second on the team with targets. Brian Thomas Jr. is a stud. He's going to be seeing a lot of defense double teams. I think that Brenton Strange is going to be a great red zone target for Trevor Lawrence.
I love it. I love it. You're only helping my case, and I think it was great points you made. We'll move to your final sleeper of the year, your tight end, Mason Taylor.
Yeah, Justin, this is a guy that not really everybody's talking about. But one thing about me, Justin, I am starting to love LSU products, whether it's a wide receiver or in this particular here, a tight end. I think that with Mason Taylor, he didn't do all too much in college, but he's an impressive blocker. He's a son, I want to say son or nephew of Jason Taylor, who's a Hall of Famer as a defensive lineman. So I think they both, Jason Taylor was known for his speed as a defensive lineman. I think that, Taylor here, I think that he has kind of attributed this same kind of mechanics where he's very fast. And I think that in New York, I think that Justin Fields is going to find this guy a ton there, Justin. I think that what we saw a couple years with Cole Kmet, he had some great games with Justin Fields. And I feel like it's going to be similar here. Not to mention last year, I think Pat Freiermuth had some great games with Justin Fields. And I think that it's going to kind of translate over here. And I know that Aaron Glenn firsthand was a part of he wasn't the offensive coordinator, but he was there on the sidelines to see Sam Laporta in his rookie year. So you just got to believe that this Jets team is going to look for a tight end to be a security blanket. What better than this guy here at LSU?
I think you make a lot of good points there. And with the kind of, the new scheme set up, it was part of the Sam Laporta tree. And you're right, LSU product, he was really solid. I actually saw him in person against when they came and played A&M, and he scored a touchdown on us. They played really well. And if you look at it, there's just no competition there. He's got Jeremy Ruckert and Stone Smart as backup tight ends. And I know most of you probably are saying, who? Exactly. And that only helps. And we talked about it earlier when we were on the Justin Fields sleeper train, that, there's really no other guy besides Garrett Wilson that really is going to demand targets from Justin Fields. So I think he's definitely worth a pickup. He's going at tight end, I think 23. So he's probably not even getting drafted in a lot of leagues, but he might be an early season pickup. And if you look at his strength of schedule, it's second best out of tight end. So he's got a good setup for himself for this 2025 season. As a rookie, I know a lot of people got the eyeballs towards Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland, but he was the next tight end off the board. And I think that he might be worth an eye to pick up as maybe a tight end 2 who could become your tight end 1 by the end of the season. But Dween Nation, those are our sleeper picks for the 2025 fantasy football season. If you have any thoughts, questions, opinions, any of those things, drop them below in the comments. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for more episodes that we have down the line to help you win your fantasy football leagues, as well as our TikTok. We're going up and up on that side of things. The short form content is great, and we also just like getting that content out faster, whether we're just like, man, I feel like talking about this, or, oh, there's something I need to talk about here. So our TikTok is we're posting just about every day. So keep checking that out. But overall, thank you guys for listening. And send us out.
Yo, Dween Nation. This was our sleepers of the year. And I'm so excited to see what we have. And there's a lot of more episodes to be done. And we're not too far away from the NFL season there. So it's right upon us. So thank you guys for watching. We love you guys. And as always, peace.